Hello! So, how do you do the Dragon Valley Easter egg? This is the way I did it. Now, it took me over an hour to do it on my own because there's a lot of flying backwards and forwards and respawning, but you can do it on your own. You can do it on the server when it's not got anybody else on it. So even when it says waiting for players across the middle of the screen, you can still unlock this Easter egg and get the Dice LA camo. The centre of the action is the temple. This is where the lights are, it's where the keypad is, so this is the main point. It's quite handy to capture this flag so you can just respawn here or put a spawn beacon down here. Now, I don't think you actually have to get this light flashing, but standing by the skull that's on the post will start this light flashing with a Morse code message. Now that basically gives you a clue as to how to do this Easter egg. But you don't really need to know that. What you do need to know is that it's these lights here around the temple that you need to turn on. Every one of these lights needs to be on to complete the first stage of the Easter egg. So you need to make a note of what they're like when the server starts. I just have one lamp on, that one there. So write that down, make a note of the position of the lights. Once you've noted which lights are on at the start, you can then activate the switches one at a time to see what effect they have on the lights. So this one here at the temple is the one I'm using as an example. Hit that switch, run back and see what has happened to the lights. So some of the lights will turn on. The reason it's important to note what the starting position of the lights was is that it changes every time the server restarts. And when you activate a switch, it can turn lights off as well as on. So you need to check to make sure that the switch isn't turning off the lights that were on at the start. You can't just activate every switch and have all the lights on. What you need to do is find out which combination of switches turns on all the lights for the setup that you had at the start. So what I did was put a little H next to the map of the lights that I'd drawn out to say that these are the ones that the switch at the H flag turned on or turned off. Then what you do is go back and turn the switch off. Now, by turning the switch off, you reset it back to how it was at the start, and then you can go to the next switch, turn that on, go back and check the lights, make a note of which one of those turned on, and repeat that for every switch on the map. And there are 7 switches. So there's this one here, which is under the planter at H. Then there's one on the second level of the temple at B. So basically you have to drop down by helicopter or plane, get into this position here, lay down and look off the edge of the roof at this little piece of moulding, and you'll see there's a switch hidden just there. Activate that switch, check the lights, turn it back off, and then you can move on to the next one. The next one I used was here. So this is at G, or between G and the water, under this hut at the end. Crawl under, turn around, and then back under the hut, and you'll find on one of the wooden beams there's another switch. Next one is at the waterfall. This one can be a bit tricky to activate because it will push you away from the wall, but here in this position against the rock is a switch and it's just sitting there, so you have to maneuver around, try and activate it. If you do activate the switch, it will kind of turn off for a while, so you can't activate it again. This next one is the hardest one to find. It's between A and B on the cliff, and what you're looking for is the dead tree. So you'll see here that one of the trees is actually dead. It doesn't have any greenery on it. Unfortunately, I've crashed the helicopter right down where I need to be, but this tree here, what you need to do is destroy it. So I C4'd it, blow it up. Then when you look inside the tree stump, there's a switch. Now I don't know how anybody found this. I guess they must have looked at the files and worked out there was a switch in this location. Anyway, activate the switch, go back, check the lights, and then come back, reset the switch and move on to the next one. And the next one is at C, right behind the village there's two buildings on the hillside. It's this building here that's got the furnace in the corner. Drop prone, crawl around, and you'll see there's a switch actually inside the furnace. It's a bit tricky to activate, you've got to be in right position, but there you go. Next one is at E, and this one is on a rock. Now, switches on rocks are a bit tricky because it's trying to find the right rock. So you want the hill that's actually just behind the tower. And then what I did was looked at Jack Frag's video and try and work out what's in the background. So there's the red maple tree, and then there's that square of towers or electrical things in the background. And then just worked around till I found the right rock, which is this one here. So don't know how to describe it any better than that, but crawl under the rock or around the base of the rock and the switch will highlight. Once you've done it for all 7 switches, I ended up with a grotty piece of paper like this, and next to each light is all the letters of the switches that turn it on. So W is waterfall, T is the tree stump, and then the rest of them are labelled with the flag that they're closest to. To make it a bit clearer, I'll draw it out again. So you have a pattern of lights, 7 across the top by 5 down the side. The pattern I started with only had 1 light on, so I crossed out all the other lights. Started by going to the switch at H and making a note of every light that switch affected just by writing a H next to the light that it affected. And I repeated that until I turned on all 7 switches, looked at what lights they did, marked it down on the chart, turned the switch off and moved on to the next one. So once you've got your map of what lights are affected by what switches, then comes the tricky bit. You have to try and work out which switches you need to turn on all 20 lights. So the rules for this are very simple. The switches only control certain lights. They turn it on if it's off, and they turn it off if it's on. There is an exception to this, and it's the last switch that you activate in the sequence. That will only turn on lights that are off. It won't turn off any lights that are already on. So I'll show you how I worked it out with the combination that I got. E has to be pressed because there are 3 buttons that only E turns on. Then I looked at which button affects the most lights that are turned off when E is on, and that was H. That will turn on 6 of the lights that are off, so that's a good start. What can I turn on with H on that is actually going to turn on most of the lights that are off? Well, that is C. But the problem with C is that it's going to turn off 2 of the lights that E has already turned on. However, that little last rule, which says that the last switch that you activate doesn't turn off lights, means that if I leave E to the end, it's not going to turn off the ones that C is going to turn on. That means that flicking into switches in the order H, C, E is going to turn on all the lights but 1. The last light needs either G or T to be activated, but T covers far too many of the lights that are already on. G is just going to turn off that 1 light that was on originally. Now that may seem bad, but I can turn that light back on with the switch W, because turning it off with G means it turns back on with W, and W is only on the same lights as E, and because E is going last, it's not going to turn off any lights that are already on. So the switch order I worked out is W, G, H, C, E. Now this of course only works for that starting combination of lights. You have to work it out every time depending on what lights are on at the start. Next is something that takes a lot less brain power. All you have to do is go around and activate the switches in the order that you've written them down. Now for me the first 4 can be done in any order as long as I leave E till the end. That's the switch I need to do last so it doesn't affect the lights that are being turned on by W and C. It would seem that if you get the order right, the last switch will be activated when you get there. So you won't be able to activate this switch. In fact, all the switches will be dead if you've got it right. So you don't need to go and activate your last switch, it should activate itself. I was just checking because I was making the video and needed to know so I could tell you that the last switch would activate itself. So now we just need to go back to H and check the lights. and indeed all the lights are on. So it is a bit hit and miss how you work it out. There are probably going to be some better guides on YouTube that explain all the maths of it, but basically I just went with which switches turn on the most lights and which one am I going to put at the end so that it isn't affecting all the other switches. Once you've got all the lights on, well, what happens now? It's pretty simple. Basically what this has done is activated a keypad. So by this column that's got the skull on, the column opposite at the back of it has got a keypad activated. Now the first time you activate this keypad, what it does is set this light flashing again, and it gives you a different message. This bit you don't need to do, but the message tells you to go to the nighttime version of Zavod, stand by a rock, listen to the message. The message is actually a slowed down version of Neebs singing Little Birdie Legs. You then have to use the words little and birdie and the numerical values of the letters in them, times it all together, that gives you a code. But you don't actually have to do that bit. I didn't. So all you need is the code. And the code for the keypad is 8398080000. So instead of going off and trying to work out what the code is, all you need to do is put that code into the keypad. If you make a mistake, it will go and you'll have to start again. But when you get it right, you'll get a double beepy noise and the keypad will actually disappear. It can only be done once per round. So if you're doing this Easter egg as a group of 4 of you, you're going to have to solve the light puzzle 4 times, and then each of you are going to have to put the code in individually in a separate round. There's no way around it. That's the way this Easter egg works. That's why I ended up doing it on my own. But as you can see, the keypad's vanished. The light is now flashing another message. Now this is a very long message. It's about 4 minutes, and if you've got recording software, this is where you've got to use it to record the flashing lights. If you don't have any game recording software, well, you can get OBS for free, or you can also get Shadowplay for free. There's plenty of free options out there. You're not after a massive frame rate, so it doesn't matter if you're on an older PC and your frame rate tanks while you're doing this. All you need is to record those lights, because it's a 4-minute long message and the 9 characters that you want out of it are right at the end. Now, I've been asked a few questions about decoding Morse code. I know nothing about Morse code. All I did was went on Google, searched for Morse code, found an image that had the whole list of letters and numbers, and used that to decode the message that I got. Fortunately, we know what the message is, so you don't need to decode all of it. All I did was move ahead in the video about 3 minutes, translate some flashes, work out where I was in the message, then move ahead again 30 seconds, work out where I was in the message, so that I found the 9 numbers that you'll get at the end. Now, numbers are always 5 flashes, either long or short. So the section of the message you actually need is pretty easy to decode. What you'll end up with is a 9-digit number that you then have to go onto the live server to enter into another keypad. Right, so now you have to change servers. You go onto a live ranked server. It's plain Dragon Valley Conquest Large. Now, getting to the water tower is much easier if you're spawning on the US side. The water tower is at the back of A, and you have to stand at the back of the water tower. So you're actually facing A, but all you can see is the central column of the water tower. And you have to wait here for 2 minutes. While you're here, it's worth looking at your feet, because what you're waiting for is for a button to appear right at the bottom of the pillar. When you press the button, then a keypad's going to appear on the metal pillar of the water tower. Enter into here the code that you've just translated from the Morse code. Don't worry, this is the final step. Once you've entered this code, you've unlocked the Easter egg. If you get the code wrong, it will go but this time you get a bit more than 2 beeps if you get the code right. So you definitely know if you've completed this Easter egg because you get neebs from Battlefield friends shouting promoted a lot. And that's it. That's the end of this bloody Easter egg. It's a really complicated one set up by JJJU, but it is quite a good one because you do get the Dice LA camo. This camo does hide you from infrared and thermal scopes, but you are dressed in bright white camo when you're running around normally, so it's a bit of a trade-off. Anyway, that's it for this Easter egg. Sorry it's such a long video, but it's a complicated Easter egg. Thanks for watching.